because raising children is important.
It is.
It is.
It's the future.
The future.
It's what we have to do for the future.
It is what we have to do for the future. And then on that profound note, thank you for joining today's Unauthorized Caucus. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it is Thursday. It is, oh wow, the Mohan family is watching from home.
Excellent.
Look at that. You have the, not only, this isn't just fan club material. This is like overzealous. We're not even past the banter yet.
Yeah.
We're getting on there. This is good stuff.
I have a big fan club.
You have a big, yes, you do.
Yes.
I'm just gonna make a, anyway, yes, you do. Welcome to the Mason Mohan fan club. Andrew, beat that.
Yep, featuring Ryan.
Yeah, it's true. Whoa. No, we are not dragging me into the middle of this. I got to referee this stuff. Oh, man. But it is Thursday. It's noon. It's time for a caucus. And what a caucus we have in store. We were kind of gearing toward a topic, and then another topic kind of bashed into the news cycle this week, and everyone lost their mind. Everyone is continuing. The Height family's watching. Wait a minute. I don't have a fan club in this. Why do I have to moderate
you
between
have a
you
whole
and Andrew?
family fan club.
I have a bigger family fan club than either of you at this point. That's
Okay, well those are
being
fighting
a good
words.
homeschool parent.
Those are fighting words.
Populating the earth with our children, my wife and I. It's what we're trying to. You Catholic family, the evangelical homeschool family. We meet in the middle. We rule the world. Done. But the banter might just roll throughout the episode today. We're both a little bit lit here on lack of sleep. But a giant topic rolled into the news this week and has just continued to make people lose their minds. And yet, the more we looked at it, it dovetailed perfectly to kind of a little bit of a longer ranging thing we wanted to talk about. So we've got a little bit of a 2-for-1. And I think that it's going to be a lot more questions that we raise than answers we give. But hopefully, both you and us will be a lot more thoughtful at the end of this, because I think that's the whole point. That's what Phyllis Schlafly would want us to do. That's what her book encouraged everyone to do in 1964, and that's what we're going to dive into today. So first of all, what anniversary are we looking forward to here in just a couple of weeks, Andrew?
Oh no! Oh no! It's too far gone.
Oh my gosh! Here we go. Man, he was here for 3 weeks. What can I say?
Yeah.
Mason, what are we looking forward to? That was not on purpose, by the way. That was pure. I don't know. I don't believe in Freud, but it was a slip.
We are celebrating the 60th anniversary of A Choice Not an Echo by Phyllis Schlafly. This book right here. This is the 50th anniversary edition, expanded and updated. It's over twice as long, if I am correct on my math. But
yes,
it's over twice as long. Has lots of great content in there. And even though this book originally came out in 1964, it's incredibly poignant for today, which is why we're talking about it. We're not just saying like, oh, there's this cool thing that happened a while ago. It's like, no, this still matters. And as I've been reading through it for the first time, of course, I'm new to the Eagle family, so I'm still getting into the insane amount that Phyllis wrote.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
It is a lot.
I'm reading this and I'm thinking, wow, she saw so much stuff so early that it feels like sometimes people today don't even recognize. And B, this is the 2016 election. This is the 2020 election. This is the 2024 election. Like that, she's talking about the 1964 election, but she's not just talking about it. She's talking about elections from even after she passed, which is the craziest part. Because she talks about Goldwater, she talks about Reagan as choices for the presidency, as choices for the GOP nominee, not just echoes of who had come before. And that's what Trump is. So
for those of you who aren't familiar, what happened in 1964, there were a few very important books put forward. John Stormer, None Dare Call It Treason, was a very influential book, 1964. This was, as the rise and the nomination of Barry Goldwater, this was a really very good time for conservatism finding a foothold in the Republican Party, which the Republican Party has good roots. It was formed as the Abolitionist Party. There's a lot of really neat and rich history, but moving into the modern era of politics, the 20th century and beyond, there were voices like Phyllis Schlafly's who it wasn't just pro-business, pro-economic. It started becoming pro-freedom and pro-limited government. It started becoming more the party of, and I mean, these factions were always there in American politics, but the Republican Party becoming the identifier, and then the 80s becoming synonymous with pro-life positions, that in the 20th century was driven by Phyllis Schlafly and other folks like her. One of her big movements began in 1964. She wrote A Choice, Not an Echo. What she did, she attended every Republican convention from 1952 forward. She wasn't a delegate starting in 52, but then she was a delegate from like 1956, I think. I'm trying to double check.
Pretty sure that's right.
1956 through 2016, literally 2 months before she 3 months before she passed away. 2 months. She was a delegate every single convention 1956 forward. She got to see the inner workings of the Republican Party. And in 1964, her gripe that came out in a wonderful little 75-cent paperback book that she published. You'll have to ask her sons about that sometime. They know all about moving and mailing of the boxes. It was a grassroots outfit from top to bottom, with a little bit of child labor sprinkled in there. That's with children.
Free market capitalism.
Free market capitalism.
That's what it is. That's what it's all about.
She went through chapter by chapter, convention by convention, and listed the names, the dates, the people, the places, what she called the kingmakers, the elitist class that tried to select their choice for a Republican nominee every 4 years, not allowing the will of the people to play out through a primary election process. And her overarching goal, this is an election, not a selection from you people. We must take this back. So from the ground up, Barry Goldwater became the nominee in 1964. Now we know he lost to LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, in the general election, but his primary nomination was a huge victory, and bigger than that, what we would call the deep state, the establishment, whatever name you want to give it today. Phyllis called the kingmakers, at least inside the Republican system, and she named names. So now things that are kind of normal to talk about, the Bilderbergers and the BlackRock. We go down the Bilderbergers, BlackRock, and George Soros, and all the different things. We're talking about Arabella Associates earlier this week on the Pro America Report. Go look up that if you haven't seen it yet. That's fantastic. New book and a new guy talking about it from Capital Research Center. But she went back and started naming names, and really kind of kicked off the era of grassroots conservatives going after what we would call the deep state now, but inside the Republican Party. So then, 50th anniversary, she came back and wrote a chapter for each convention since 1964. Fascinating to hear the background story. And she left a clarion call for, this is why Donald Trump matters. This is why Donald Trump is the man for this moment. Because we're not just facing, pro-life versus pro-abortion, this versus that. We are facing the deep state, we the powerful, versus we the people, our liberty and constitutional order itself.
Right.
What better message is there for 2024? And I know some people say, oh, you don't want to have this showdown all over again. Biden and Trump, we're just going to rehash the old. No, it's not that we're rehashing anything. This is, in my mind, far from settled. So Phyllis's request that we choose a candidate who is a real choice for the people, not an echo of failed policies, an echo of other people, an echo of their masters in the elitist class. We need a choice, not an echo. That's what she called Trump in 2016. I know she would have done the same thing in 2020, and I am very positive she would be doing the same thing in 2024 because the battle has shaped up, not along old school lines, 30, 40 years ago, different issues. It really now is a knockout, drag down, whatever. This is a cage match. This is a cage match between we the people and they the powerful.
Right.
The deep state versus liberty. And,
Right.
and having some sort of democratic say whatsoever in this republic anymore. The rule of law itself. So this is an anniversary that comes up. We kind of buried the lead there. Not really. No, we didn't. This was the lead up. This was the crescendo. May 1st, 1964 was the publication date. So May 1st, 2024, we will be celebrating the 60th anniversary of this book. I can't think of a more important year to do it in than 2024, particularly when she left this off in 2014. Now, she didn't name Trump by name in this book. She did in another book called The Conservative Case for Trump that you should go and get on our website. But in this book, the clarion call of we must have someone to fight back this elitist class. And then in 2016, she stood on stage with him and said, Donald Trump is our choice, not an echo.
Right.
And it's, here we are again. So that's a really important anniversary, but I think it has a lot of other implications for us, not just presidential politics, Which book? I'm late, Velveteen Rabbit. Hey, welcome
A
back.
Choice, Not an Echo.
A Choice, Not an Echo. Phyllis Schlafly's premier first book, 1964, the one that kicked it all off. 50th anniversary we're holding here from 2014. And then this year is the 60th anniversary for those of you just joining us. And of course, we've been holding up this lovely book. If you're on the podcast, though, go to phyllisschlafly.com and hit the shop button. Shop, store, shop, whatever. There's a button that you'll see. I forget which exact S word it is, but it's either shop or store, and it'll get you to the books. You will see this, and you can get a hold of one yourself. You also, though, not just because you want to get the redacted email, really, really, really want to sign up for the Phyllis Schlafly email list if you haven't already. Go to unauthorizedcaucus.com and do that. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out about this anniversary, but there's going to be some cool opportunities and things and stuff and things, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yep.
So, anything else you want on the specific anniversary before maybe we just dive off into the topic of A Choice, Not an Echo?
Let's dive into that topic.
Cool. So, Donald Trump never makes news anymore. In fact, the news just ignore him because, he's irrelevant. He still drives them like a taskmaster of their own doing. He drives them every single day.
They're glad the election season is back on because it was dry not being able to talk about Donald Trump.
Oh my gosh, their ratings are back through the roof.
Yeah.
CNN is probably a happy camper now. They're back to it because everyone's paying attention again. And that's mostly us just watching to see what kind of meltdowns we'll have today.
Right.
But Donald Trump made an interesting splash into the world this week and did not just make lefties mad. The lefties aren't the only ones who are mad at him. What happened? You want to give us a little rundown of that? I'm going to pull up the actual text of it so maybe we can have a quote here.
Right. Well, there's the abortion issue is still an issue, but now it's a state-by-state issue. And as everybody knows, what state was it in? Was it in Arizona?
Arizona this week. I've got that pulled up here.
Right. But the IVF thing, where was that?
Oh, Alabama.
Alabama, yeah.
That was a few weeks ago.
Right.
And we didn't talk about that.
I don't think
that
we
happened
did.
when you were out.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
We didn't really talk about that, but that was a little bit of a kerfuffle.
Yeah, but that ties into this too, because that's what he talks about. So, Alabama, it was a few weeks ago. Political amnesia, it's just the issues of the day replaced the issues of 3 weeks ago. That's like 100 years ago. I believe it was the Supreme Court of Alabama decided, okay, IVF goes against our Constitution. And very quickly and swiftly, the Alabama legislature restored it into law, and IVF was once again legal. Then, just this week, Arizona's Supreme Court decided that, oh hey, this super old law we have that bans all abortion,
1864, I think.
That's still valid. That's still a law, which makes sense. I mean, it was on the books. And it was only held back by Roe v. Wade, and then Roe v. Wade got overturned, which means that is no longer an unconstitutional law, which means it has the full force of law. And that still stands as it is, which is a great thing. And so Trump, I mean, you have the text of his video, but Trump made a statement about IVF specifically.
Right. Well, and he made a statement about IVF specifically, but then he dove into, and I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat here. Just keep, if we don't get to it, type louder, and we'll try to make sure. No, I'm kidding. So a part of this, Trump had a little bit of I don't know if he said anything about the IVF when it came out, but it had been rumored that Trump was looking at the idea of supporting a national ban on abortion. Because very specifically, and actually this is one thing I didn't pull up, was the actual text of Dobbs v. Jackson. So many people, and this is kind of what this stems back to. Here's the deal. Roe v. Wade is overturned. For a long time, Roe v. Wade was used legally to shut down pro-life efforts in the states that wanted to be pro-life, and to prop up or encourage pro-abortion laws and efforts in the big blue states. Well, the red states with big blue cities. There aren't any blue states, I've come to find out. They're pretty much all just tiny little coastal regions that are atrocious with their voting. It's fun. Look at a county-by-county map sometime of 2020 and 2016, and it'll shock you. There's not very much blue out there when you look at the state versus the county. But for a long time, Roe v. Wade was giving cover to pro-abortion states and used to beat down pro-life measures across pro-life states. So, Roe v. Wade gone, states can do what they want. Now, the Dobbs v. Jackson decision, correct me if I'm wrong, it did not specifically say, now this issue belongs to the states. It now returned this issue to the will of the people, to the will of the voters and their legislators, right? That's not the exact language, but that was what the Dobbs v. Jackson decision said, more or less.
It allowed the states to legislate. It
Right.
also allows the federal government to legislate.
But see, that's the thing. So the Dobbs v. Jackson decision just returns decisions on abortion policy. Instead of using Roe v. Wade to say no and yes and no and yes and no and yes in the court system, that's all gone. This legal structure and precedent, gone. Now, it's back to the people and their representatives, their legislatures.
Right.
So a lot of people immediately ran to saying, now it's being given back to the states. It's not actually what the Dobbs v. Jackson decision said. It left open the possibility of a national, piece of legislation on abortion. So that has been a possibility, but of course a lot of conservatives run to, well, it should be the states. Now, that's what I've heard that a lot over the last couple of years, but then Trump says it and everyone loses their mind. What just from your take, did you hear a lot of back to the states, or did in your realm of kind of paying attention to politics and pro-life organizations specifically, did a lot of them run immediately to, now we need a national ban? I heard more of the state stuff like 2 years ago. Oh, it's back to the states. Because states immediately could put in effect things that, Roe and lawsuits had previously not let them put into effect, Missouri included.
That's what the attention was on, because a lot of states already had trigger laws set up for if, especially like in the meantime between the leak and the decision actually coming down, a lot of states prepared, like, okay, we're gonna put these laws in place to take effect as soon as this is overturned. So I don't think it's as much as that maybe people were consciously thinking like, oh, this is just going to be a states' rights issue. That's just where all the attention went right away. And on top of that, it's the prospect of getting the House of Representatives and the Senate to pass a nationwide abortion ban, that just seems completely impossible.
Right.
I would like it. If I were dictator, I would do it.
Right.
But that's so, they can't do anything.
They can't even get a speaker for more than 6
Yeah, much less handle the most contentious issue in American politics.
So here's and I see at least one question starting to roll in. So before we continue, let's just the quick recap of what happened. So Donald Trump has entertained the idea of a national abortion ban. So it's been rumored, et cetera, and so on. Monday, he finally put out his video stating his outlook on abortion policy as a prospective, candidate for president. And he talked, many people have asked me my position on abortion and abortion rights, and he made the obligatory and correct reminders to everyone about all of the amazing pro-life things that happened during his first term, particularly the 3 Supreme Court justices that he stuck by, and delivered the denial of Roe v. Wade. Finally, after 40 years, we've been waiting. But he went on to talk about IVF. He went on to talk about a few things, but he said, here, and my view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint. The states will determine by vote or legislation, or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. So he went on and said a lot more things, and he actually explained part of it. This is kind of a political motivation. Guys, we got to win in November, and we've got a lot of people who are looking, so maybe this shouldn't be our single issue that we're driving a big national ban on something when there's a bunch of states who are going to fight it and we're trying to win. So there were a lot of layers, but this immediately sent a lot of conservatives into a very not pro-Trump state because he's abandoned this, he's abandoned that, and they reacted, and rightfully so. In fact, there's a few things even in that sentence that I'm like, well, it's not the law of the land. He did clarify law of the state, but then also where everybody wanted it from, I don't think everyone ever wanted it, as a patchwork.
Right.
The pro-abortion people want their way all the way over, and the pro-life people want abortion banned nationwide. So it's not exactly where we wanted it. This is a step that we all wanted, was the removal of this federal roadblock called Roe v. Wade. But it seems to me, I don't know, this caused a kerfuffle.
Yeah.
But I think this has a lot of interesting considerations for us, because I knew immediately, and this is where it kind of ties into a choice, not an echo. We talk about on the show a lot, starting the conversation, having the discussions that are not being had. You and I want to be, and I'm not leaving you out of this, you and us, we want to be a choice. We want to make choices. We want to be considerate and thoughtful about the issues, not just ideally where we want to go as a nation, where we've been and where we're trying to get back to, but also practically, strategically where we are now. We don't just want to echo what other people hear. And I heard a ton of echoes. This week, I heard all of the left echoing look at Trump, he hates women and their reproductive rights. And then I also heard on the right, look at Trump, he betrayed us on pro-life. He's not actually pro-life,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. And I didn't hear, in a lot of the folks who were talking, there was some, but I didn't hear a lot of thoughtfulness.
Right.
Like, when I heard this, my instant reaction was, okay, well, I think that abortion is a moral wrong. It is an evil, and it should be banned at the national level. However, I also, as a conservative, usually first question I ask myself, now pause, do I want the federal government to take precedence over this? Or would I rather this be something that states can deal with? And then you start to look at, well, if we're going to have a national abortion ban, how would we do that?
Right.
Are we just going to rush through a law that's going to be overturned immediately the next time someone else gets into Congress or someone else gets into the Oval Office? Or are they going to put down a constitutional amendment? Really hard to get done, really hard to undo. Because all you're doing is stepping into it, and Gwen in our office actually made this. I thought it in my head, she said it out loud first. We did this once with marriage. The federal government dipped their toe in a new way into definitionally messing with marriage with DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act. I liked that we were defending the traditional definition of marriage, but we began the precedent, the right did, that now the left has come back with a sledgehammer and thrown some major punches.
Right.
So how do we want to go about this? This is not to just be, oh, well, we should just do this and do it that way. Well, pause. He's got a point. This is a little bit more dicey. Now, maybe he's being politically expedient more than, he's actually looking at that side of it. But I said, well, that's not totally crazy to be against a national abortion ban. I can easily see some very good arguments for it. But I knew a lot of people, no, there's no arguments. And I thought, well, pause. Stop just echoing what other people, this is interesting.
Right.
So this kind of gives us an opportunity to be thoughtful. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is right or wrong. I'm just saying there's a lot more to it than what I saw a lot of people immediately hop to.
Right. Well, if y'all remember from last week we had a very interesting discussion, and you, Ryan, you talked about these kind of like three levels to politics. You got your principles, you got your tactics, and you have your strategies. And we talked about how conservatives are very good at the principles. We're kind of just obsessed with those and kind of just want to huddle around our principles and hang out with those and play with those. And we ignore tactics, and we especially ignore strategies. And that is what I see coming through right now, that we have our principled pro-life position. It is the correct position, and we know it's the correct position. But you can't just keep waving your principles around and expect magic to occur and your principles to suddenly have the force of law. That's not how it works. You need tactics and you need strategy. And it's a simple fact that if you run on abortion right now, you are going to lose an election, unless you are in a extremely red area or a place where this is not contentious whatsoever. But really any national election, and especially the presidency, if you make this your primary issue, you are going to lose.
Now, see, you've just, pause, because you just said two different things, and I agree with one of them, but I disagree with the other. First of all, if you make this your primary, at a national level, if you make this your primary thing, you're running primarily on this, that's probably not going to endear you to a vast majority of the country. Because people even people who have a stance on abortion, they're more concerned about their wallets being drained dry or this or that or gas and groceries. That's not necessarily the winning banner to carry, but having a fully pro-life position, I am not convinced, and I have not seen any data to back it up, that having a solid, no exceptions pro-life position, which we've articulated here, the reasons for all of that, go and look it up. We've got an article series. I don't want to get into the no exceptions thing now, but we've talked about that and articulated it well, I think. I have never seen anywhere that holding that kind of rock solid at a national level pro-life position has hurt a candidate. I would differentiate. There's a difference between running on that as your platform and, you know what I mean, making it the main thing and holding that. I see this all the time where people say, well, you can't win nationally if that's your thing. I'm like, no, I don't believe that's accurate. I think that we can have rock solid, super strong, no exceptions, pro-life people that would win at a national level. I just don't think anyone's had the guts to try it. Everyone always cows to well, we can't do that. It's not pop. That's perceived. I've never seen it happen in reality. Now, if you make it your primary campaign point, this is my take. I don't know if there's enough data for either one of us to prove that we're right. But to me, I don't know if that's true.
I think it is, because I think that that the left and the left's like dark money election areas, like they go heavy on this issue because
it's true.
This does get at people.
Well, and
This doesn't, and the left is much better at getting at people's convictions about this than the right is, because we saw that in Ohio. Tons of money flowed in, and got all these people all up in a tizzy, and then they went and voted to legalize abortion in Ohio.
right.
And conservatives were not good at that. The left is better at propagandizing about this.
They may be evil people, but they're not stupid.
Right. They are better at propagandizing
when you see,
about
and when I
this.
say evil people, don't hear me calling every single person you know that's a deceived leftist evil. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about the people running the show. They don't put their money in stupid places. To be abundantly clear, they are very effective with their money, even if they're wrong. So you got a point there. This is their issue they have picked. They must see data that says we can win on this.
Right. Well,
I wonder, is it because Republicans are soft? Is it because conservatives don't bother to articulate something as bold as they do?
No, I don't think that's it. I think there's levels to this, but I think that what Trump is doing is smart, where he's not doubling down on the radicalism himself. He's making the other side out to be the radicals, because he needs those kind of middle of the road voters, the people that are like, oh, well, you know, maybe the life of the mother, or maybe this or that, you know, which I disagree with. I think those people have the wrong position on it. But if Trump gets up there and is like, when I'm in office, I'm going to make sure a no exceptions abortion ban gets passed, he's going to instantly lose all those people. If during his campaign he's highlighting, I've been a great pro-life president, you look at these other people and they're the radicals. These, like, he talked about this in his video, painting the left, which is an accurate position, like an accurate description of them, that they want abortion through all 9 months and sometimes even after. I mean, you look at the Michigan law, like, these people are the radicals, and emphasizing that we are trying to stop these people that are trying to kill babies, you know, the second before they exit the womb, make that legal, or even after. I think because that gets those people that are kind of on the fence, that, you know, those people that think it's a gray area, that don't have a firm position one way or another, they're going to be more uncomfortable voting for, and I think that is the majority of Americans. I don't think the majority of Americans hold our position on this. I wish they did, but I don't think they do. I think that because even Republicans that I've talked to, Republicans that we've seen, even Republican legislators that are otherwise principled conservatives, there are a lot of them out there that think this is a gray area, that have a hard time coming down on one side or the other about it. But you need to get those people's vote, and you need to emphasize they're black instead of emphasizing you're white. You know, I think that's how you win on the abortion issue, and that's how you handle it.
I think there's some good points in there, and I agree with most of it. I am still, though, not convinced that someone coming out with a full, really strong, full-throated, very unusual for what we're used to seeing, non-squishy opinion on abortion couldn't have some great success. To your point, though, well, and to the point that we had last week, there is a time for each of these things. Right now, there are several people in a lot of these pro-abortion states who are not for some of the radical stuff that's happening, but they are also not for some of the radical stuff that's happening on censorship and some of the others. They may be predisposed to deliver some major voting blocks to Trump, economically, constitutionally, and it has nothing to do with pro-life.
Right.
So, you know, to your point,
it's
it's
think
not
about immigration.
alien.
Immigration is getting
that goes way
people
beyond
to flip to the other side.
Right. That goes way beyond our traditional, you know, thing.
And you might scare them back really quick if you start going hardline on pro-life.
Why I had more questions than I had reactions initially when I watched Trump's video. Because my first thought was, well, I think all of these things. I see the point of why people would say this is kind of bending over and you know, backwards and capitulating to the squishy side. But I also see a bunch of valid things where I'm like, well, I don't know if we want to do it that way, and I don't want it to be rushed. And also, we got to win the election. And you don't compromise on your conviction. But here's one of the points, and I want to make this because the Rumble chat. If you're not in the Rumble chat, you're missing out.
Rumble
These
chat
people
is
are going
popping.
crazy. Like they're not even asking us questions anymore. I think they're just doing their own little thing. It's like Lord of the Flies down here. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm going to try to catch up and see. But we've got we have a very interesting time in history where I would say we have already lost this argument. Like the worst happened. Not the worst. Really bad things happened. Legal protections at the federal level for 40 years that plagued pro-life efforts.
Almost 50.
Almost 50.
Yeah.
We have lost the cultural battle, which that's a whole nother conversation that we might be having. Thank you to a listener for that suggestion. But we've kind of lost the cultural battle when you look at it and see that people don't understand this issue as black and white as you and I do when it comes to the dignity of human life and why it doesn't matter. That's just a core conviction. But that faith that drives that core conviction, the spiritual understanding we have of life itself on this planet, that is not shared by a lot of people in this country, even a lot of people who are kind of pro-freedom and conservative, especially when it comes to economics and immigration and this and that and the other. We've got a lot of work to do, and just coming in with a national abortion ban is not necessarily going to we're kind of incrementally working our way back, and part of it is we've got to do that work politically, legislatively, legally, but we also have to do that work culturally. Or all we're doing is, honestly, you throw down a national abortion ban right now, thinking about it. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do, but you throw that down right now, but you haven't changed a bunch of people's hearts and minds, that's gone. They'll get rid of it because they're not ready for that.
Well,
we are working from a deficit here to come back. And if it really is about not just doing the right thing the fastest way, but doing the right thing the right way and making it stick, throwing out a national abortion ban would not necessarily be wise in my estimation right now. So criticizing Trump for saying we shouldn't do that and do it a different way, yeah, I mean, I could take issue with some of the things he said, but I mean, it's not as bad as, again, a lot of people immediately ran to echoing lines that I heard from the anti-Trumpers. See, he's not pro-life. And then all the pro-lifers, oh my gosh, he's not pro-life. He's not pro-life. No, calm down. Everyone think about it for a minute and don't just listen to what you heard and repeat it. Think about it first, which is kind of the point that we always have here. So, but anyway, there's a lot of things to consider there, and we can't just echo what other people say and be emotionally driven. Leave that to the left.
Well, okay, I'm going to echo what somebody else said real quick.
Hit it. Oh my goodness!
Because I think it's a good
this
point.
more than
I
me.
think it's a
No,
good
I'm kidding.
point.
Go ahead.
Aaron McIntyre, who's a columnist and podcaster with The Blaze, he tweeted the other day, or X-posted. He said conservatives are like heroin addicts because as soon as we get into power, we just dump all of our power into whatever's at the top of our priority list. Whereas when the left gets power, they invest their power into increasing their power. And so their power can grow and grow and grow. And that's why in the chat, what Velveteen Rabbit's talking about right now, like with the sexual revolution, that, they got their foot in the door, and instead of saying, like, instead of day one being like, okay, trans liberation, they're like, no, let's just grow our cultural power in this little by little by little by little. And then decades and decades later, now we're seeing the consequences of that. The conservatives have not had any lasting cultural change. We've just been consistently losing the culture war year by year because we're not willing to make the investments in fortifying our power, which goes back to the, tactics versus principles kind of issue that we discussed last week, where one of the conservative principles is like, oh, we should have limited government. We should limit our own power. So once you're in a position to do something, it's like, okay, let's get this thing done, and then let's get rid of my ability to ever do anything about anything else. And that's a problem. That's why we keep losing.
There's a lot of good ones as we go along here. I'm looking at. I see a few people pointed out. Someone said, "Would a national ban really stop states from doing what they want to do?" I.e., Colorado legalized marijuana even when it was federally illegal. This is an interesting consideration. Someone asked if there was a pro-life Congress and they didn't already pass a federal law or start an amendment process, despite Roe v. Wade, were they not pro-life? That's another good question.
Right.
Well, that's a good point. No one said anything then. And then you ran into a lot of the other stuff that's going on. I really do. This is, and there's a really good, Velveteen Rabbit just mentioned this, that this is a long game. The left, the Marxist left, the neo-Marxists, the whatever label you want to put on them, have made their, quite successfully at this point, as we're seeing, have made their long march through the institutions. Mm-hmm. We can react, but we must react with some fundamental, foundational stuff and change in mind. And that doesn't always mean going to 100. Sometimes you can't always just, I'm trying to think of not a sports analogy, But it's not, like at baseball, you can't just hit home runs all the time. Home runs are great. Home runs are fun. But you have to play the small ball of being a team and working your way around. Otherwise, you lose the game. Doesn't matter if you hit the home run if you lost the game. Doesn't matter if we passed a national abortion ban, if we did it badly and quickly and no one was ready for it and it was a faulty premise and whammo, it gets changed on us and they bring down the sledgehammer in a constitutional fashion that we can't just upend the next time we get in. We need to get the long game. We need to get the game won, not just this inning. Or in football, throw the Hail Mary instead of working your way down toward the end zone. Whatever analogy you want to put to it, there's a difference between facing battles and winning the war. We have to get a wartime perspective, not a this battle perspective. And I look at 2024, Donald Trump and the national abortion ban question as a battle. This is one that this is not the hinge of America. We are fighting 70 plus years of infiltration that has broken the family and our system itself. We cannot be allowed to just shove ourselves into a corner on this and lose the strategy that is playing out.
Right.
Because, the proof is in the pudding. The first thing I had to laugh when someone said, well, this just proves Donald Trump really isn't that pro-life. I'm like, he's more pro-life than any Republican president in my lifetime or before. And what are you talking about? I'm like, well, and we had this conversation here in the office. I'm like, think about it. Every single one of them I would love to have had Supreme Court Justice Bork, but we didn't because Reagan backed down. I would love to have had fill in the blank, but each time Republicans, we would get a really good one, but then we would also get someone terrible because they caved to the pressure of, it needs to be someone who's acceptable. You need to give a little bit. And Trump stood by one of the worst public lynchings we have ever seen. And Trump and his people said, no, him. And the Republican Senate followed his lead. Kavanaugh stayed in, and guess what? Amy Coney Barrett was even gutsier because who would want to follow that? You know what's coming for you.
Right.
Trump stood by his people. That's more than I can say for the other Republican presidents before him.
Right.
The proof is in the pudding. This guy had a very pro-life administration. To immediately be peeled off by never-Trumpers who are waiting to drive a wedge between Trump and conservative voters. And again, this is no cult of personality. I'm not just pro-Trump because I love Trump.
Nobody has been more consequential.
No one has been more consequential for the pro-life movement. Those guys are going to be on the Supreme Court, those three, for at least the next 2 decades. I don't think I'm being too much of a stretch there because of their ages. We have a long time with them on the court, and that's going to affect way more than life. There's just a lot more to consider, and I really dislike seeing the right get whipped into a frenzy. We must leave that to the left. Every single battle becomes the war. And that's exactly what the left does, but they're so good at looking down the field and whipping their people into frenzies that they win. We are so bad at getting caught up into them and not continuing to have a unified, long-term vision.
Yes.
This is one of those moments, I think, where there's a real Phyllis-y, that's our phrase, that's our favorite adverb. There's a Phyllis-y choice, not an echo moment here in 2024 that we get, and this is just one glimpse of them. I'm not saying that Trump's statement was perfect. I do think it was very well crafted. And I actually, props to him for saying this is kind of a political issue. We got to win this year, and we got to focus on winning. And there's way more than just this one thing to focus on winning. And everyone's like, you can't, wait a minute. Everyone always tells me, it's principle, not practicalism. And he goes, yeah, it's kind of practical. And you have, what are you going to do, argue with him? He's being honest. That's the more than I can say for most people running, including Republicans. There's a lot more to consider. And I'm very saddened that I didn't hear more conservatives talking about, wow, there's a lot more to consider. Let's think about this for a minute. I just saw everyone spin off into Trump hates women's rights.
Considering doesn't mean we're abdicating our principles.
No,
That's
not at all.
Means.
Never do you abdicate your convictions, but you must, as we talked about last week, you've got your convictions, you have strategy, that long-term view, and then you have tactics, the short-term. What do we do right now?
And your convictions do not matter if you don't win.
Yeah.
They just don't.
That's true. Your principles mean nothing if you shoot yourself in the foot over and over again.
You can sit in the ditch with your principles, but like that. So what? That doesn't help. But yeah.
So let this be perhaps the measured voice. And by the way, I'm gonna pop over here maybe while we wind up real quick. I'll let you tell people where to go for stuff. But let me say, let us be the measured voices for anytime Trump says something, and the never Trumpers, the left, and the super Trumpers that don't maybe think about things but just love Donald Trump, when all of the factions just run off into their corners of woohooism, we must be the ones who say, stop, hold on. Let's talk about this. Let's consider this. And I know, I'm not saying we have slow to action. We've got to be quick and fast and fleet on our feet to get into the fight. But we also must be thoughtful of how all of these things work together. This is a golden opportunity that we're witnessing right now as all the different factions try to whip up whatever it is that they want people to have their emotional reaction to with what Trump said about abortion. Don't have one. You, me, we all get this opportunity to say, no, I'm not going to let someone get my emotional response. Let me think about this. Let me weigh my convictions, the strategy behind it, and then tactically what's the right thing to do. This is a great opportunity to make a choice, not an echo. And I think that Trump is still our choice, not an echo. But I don't know if I ever heard Phyllis say that, because she was always talking about we want candidates who are a choice, not an echo. This is an opportunity, 2024, for real, authentic, thoughtful conservatives to make choices, not echoes, of the very bad ideas around them.
Yes.
Where can people go and find out more about this stuff? Let me flip through here.
Go over to phyllisschlafly.com, unauthorizedcaucus.com. That's correct, right?
Unauthorizedcaucus.com.
Unauthorizedcaucus.com. Sign up for our email list. Then you will get the redacted email. It will have links. It will have everything that you need. But you especially want to be on the email list because A Choice, Not an Echo, 60th anniversary at the end of this month, beginning of next month. Huge deal. Monumental book. We're celebrating it. You don't want to miss out on what we have in store for that. And while you're here, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble, wherever you are, like, subscribe, share this with a friend, leave a comment on your way out. If you're watching this later, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. And never be afraid to reach out to us, to reply, and join the conversation, because this is not just us talking at you. We're in a conversation with you, even though that you right now are a camera to us. We hear from you. We're listening to what you say. So keep the conversation going. Talk to other people about this, friends and family, and maybe point them to us too. Let them join the conversation as well.
Yep. And go sign up for the email list, because there's going to be really cool anniversary stuff coming over the next month that you will want to be a part of. Last one, I'll look through. There was a lot of really good stuff in the chat today, and it looks like a lot of it's going back and forth. Read it if you haven't. A Choice, Not an Echo. Thank you, Velveteen Rabbit. You are absolutely correct.
So true.
So true. Go and consider this. Someone's asking in the YouTube chat, how can we be working from a deficit when there's been strong pro-life organizations, grassroots activism, fundraising for half a century? That's a good question, and you should ask yourself that. Why are we working from a deficit? Has all of their fundraising been for nothing? Well,
it's because a lot of the time they don't want to get political.
Well, a lot of times they're going to be political, but I think we just picked our topic for next week. And it's not pro-life organizations, by the way. That's not the topic for next week. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, what we talked about?
What we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
That might be it. Why are we working from a deficit if all of these conservative groups have done all of this stuff? Well, but have you? But have you been focusing on the right thing? But have you just put a Band-Aid on top of a broken limb?
Sneak peek.
Sneak peek. Welcome to the world of our brain trust. Our brains.
So tune in next week. You want to be here next week.
You want to be here. We want to be here next week and see what in the world we say. We'll find out.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this wonderful, wonderful, at least sunny in St. Louis day, Thursday at noon. And we look forward to talking to you next week for another Unauthorized Caucus.